Good afternoon, and welcome to the second presentation in the Fall 2025 Sustainability Research and Practice Seminar at Westchester University. My name is Bradley Flam, and I'm the Director of the Office of Sustainability. And we are thrilled to co-sponsor this series of presentations with the university's Office for Research and Sponsored Programs and the Sustainability Council's Scholarly and Creative Activities Committee. We have a full schedule, actually a baker's dozen of presentations this semester, 13 presentations that will take us through early December, every Wednesday at the same time. Please, either whether you're online joining us or here in person in 255 Sykes, please join us every Wednesday as you can. For those of you in person, we have copies of the flyer. If you haven't yet seen them around the buildings you work in, please take some and post them in your building so that others know about the presentations. And for those of you online, you can find a full copy of this on the Office of Sustainability's homepage. So without further ado, we are honored to have Dr. Mark Yang from the College of Business and Public Management here with us today. And without further ado, I'm going to pass the podium to you.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. Thank you for having me. So, my name is Mark Yang. I'm Management Department. I have been here about 13 years. I mean, this is my 13th year teaching and research. And I'm going to present my topic, the Sustainable Supply Chain 2.0. I call Y 2.0 later. And inside the lesson from my research and emerging trend. This is a kind of overview of what I have done, not just particular paper. So you may see some flow, why I started this topic, why I was interested, and what kind of contribution what are the emerging trends in the years to come. That's my kind of intention for this presentation. So here are kind of outline. You see that there are a lot of things to go on, so I need to go a little faster. I'm going to talk about my research publication from 2011 until 2013. And I will introduce why I studied the sustainable supply chain journey. Motivation was lean-green linkage. And then I'm going to talk about key research contribution, emerging trend. And can I just... Good. Here are kind of snapshot of what have been published in sustainability area research. You see the, my Google Scholar. I published about 21 total, but among them, about 50% of research was sustainability related. I didn't intend to do that, but somehow I counted it that's my kind of, percentage, which means I focus a lot of research on sustainability and supply chain in general. And you see that the red box is 2013 was the year that I published my doctoral dissertation. Since then, I really focus on sustainable supply chain, and among them, I've published 3 journals, and this is kind of my research publication. Let me introduce like a Toyota journey to how they evolved from lean to green. This was kind of, I was reading the working paper back then in 2008 and 9. It's almost 15 years ago. And Toyota was known as Toyota Production System. It's basically another name of lean manufacturing, lean production, mainly focused on efficiency, cost reduction. It became very popular. And they started with like a Corolla, which is a, small compact sedan, mainly focused on cost reduction, efficiency driven, and then a lot of limited scope. And over time, they evolved to the hybrid model. We call the green model, like Camry and Lexus. They put a lot of differentiation and premium value added on. So that was like kind of, Toyota tried to evolve from lean to green in the industry level. And then I got really strong motivation. This is interesting linkage. The lean, green, how they are connected, not just in the industry level, but in the scholarly perspective. How scholars are looking at the linkage between lean production and sustainability. So I got some little bit of research on and see the three different types, how the lean green are related. One of the type that I found that lean practice, you see the type A, enhance overall performance of green performance. So scholarly speaking, this lean mediates relationship between green practice and performance outcomes. So the other popular type I found that lean is green, meaning that adopting lean practice, namely manufacturing system in general, has inherently beneficial to reduce the waste, so resulting in enhancing the environmental benefit as a whole. So it was not intended benefit, but somehow lean inherently affect the environment performance one way or another. So there has really, many scholars are working on that. Lean practice is leading to environment performance, arguing that lean is green. The other type, they show that lean is a trigger, driver, adopt a green program. Because lean has been foundational in improving the efficiency and quality management, lean become trigger to adopt another type of green program. So lean trigger to green and green practice definitely affect the environment performance. This is another type of research in terms of linkage between lean and green. And based on that, I published one paper in IJP, which is a pretty good journal at the time as a doctoral student. Luckily I got the 309 international manufacturing data set from my professor. So we are working together with the professor and published this journal. This journal basically research model shows the lean effect, definitely direct effect to business program, business performance, such as market and financial performance. But interesting finding is that lean, as I hypothesized, trigger, adopting environmental management program, and that affect, business performance, but through enhancing environmental performance. So that really lean has driver for environmental program. Environment program can have a business effect through enhancing their environmental performance. So there are a lot of indirect effects found, and so here you see that there is a direct effect from lean to business performance, but there are indirect effects from lean to business performance through environmental management program. And interesting finding was that green program has a negative impact. As you see the negative sign here. This is a statistically negative. So basically by implementing green program has a negative impact on business performance. That was expected, but that was a surprising result, I see. But through enhancing green performance first, they have a positive impact on business performance. So somehow that result gained a lot of international recognition. I was surprised to see that over 10 years, 10 plus years, I got almost 1,500 citations. And I was thought about why this paper became so much popular. As opposed to my other papers. Because at the time, the lean green was researched in separation, not integration. So people just thought lean is lean and green is green. There's no integration is possible. But my research shows that there is a possibility lean has connection with green in general sustainability. That was one main argument. The other one is I used the 309 data set across 22 different countries that provide a strong empirical evidence of data shows that, okay, implementing sustainability will bring positive business value. So many companies at that time very hesitant to implement some green program because of negative connotation. Sustainability is not paid off. You have a lot of a negative benefit come from implementing those add-on. You have to invest in a green program. But my paper shows that still there is a positive effect can be possible by implementing green programs. Also, global relevance of sustainable manufacturing. Because my data set nature get the 22 different countries. This sustainability is not small in scope in local company, but it can be spread into different, countries. So global relevance. So many developing countries, they are adopting my model, and so you see that, there are many, Asian companies who are trying to adopt the lean, and also they are aware of, sustainability, how they can integrate. And then my model becomes some implication for that. So having said, I try to tackle on why don't I like develop my sustainable supply chain model? Because lean green is a small subset. I want to expand to sustainable supply chain model. But thinking about, because my expertise was in supply chain, sustainability was, basically came to my mind. How can I integrate these two topics together? And I thought about, sustainability add complexity to traditional supply chain, because sustainability means you have to expand, beyond the disposal stage. Linear thinking models say take, make, and dispose. That's the linear way of, looking at supply chain. But sustainability simply adds on complexity, because you have to reverse logistics, you have to reuse, remanufacture, recycle, like a closed loop system now added. And I also thought about traditional supply chain model can provide broader and systemic improvement to sustainability. So somehow this combining these two broad areas can lead to sustainable supply chain. That was my basic idea of how I can connect these two topics. And then at that time, I adopted sustainability as triple bottom line perspective. Triple bottom line is very popular these days, but 15 years ago, it was basically starting stage. So people argue, how can we kind of, find the survey items over there? It was a very daunting task, but I continually believe that sustainability can be understood more clearly through the triple bottom line lens. So from that, also, I thought about supply chain is a complex network. Consider the focal company, and then, focal company has to manage different tiers of suppliers, different tiers of customers. So we call it, upstream supplier network and downstream customer network. For example, you are Apple company here as a focal company. Usually focal company is considered as OEM, original equipment manufacturer company, such as brand name company, such as Apple or Samsung or LG. They have a major supplier like a Foxconn, and they have to manage the tier one supplier, and tier one suppliers manage a whole bunch of tier two suppliers. Tier two supplier has to manage, tier three all the way to tier N. So as supply network close down, farther down to the initial supplier, there are unmanageable number of suppliers. You cannot manage them. So basically, it adds to a lot of complexity in nature. So what you have to do, you need to manage the link. So he said, as a supply chain is only as strong as its weakest link. If you can manage any weak link, you're failing to manage the entire supply chain. That happened during pandemic. You couldn't manage the tier one supplier, Foxconn, because shut down during pandemic. Apple couldn't deliver the parts, and they couldn't meet the demands of customers. So supply chain disruption happened because they failed to manage the supply chain network. So gradually, supply chain tier become fragmented and global in scope because of globalization and specialization in nature. So there are a lot of problems happen in terms of sustainability. Here are some examples. There are environmental sustainability problems in supply chain. One of the main issues is resource depletion. Companies are heavily using water, oil, minerals, chemicals, and lumber. So there are a lot of air pollution, water contamination, and greenhouse gas emission. Still, many companies are tended to think linear thinking. take, make, and dispose model instead of circular economy concept. So very limited, we use recycling, waste recovery in their supply chain network. But it takes money and time. So core issue is garbage in and garbage out, meaning if you have a lot of unsustainable input, you have harmful output. So that's the main issue of environmental sustainability problems. So here are the example of Coca-Cola is criticized for high water consumption in India and Africa. They had a lot of water scarcity issue for local communities. Apple, faced pressure over sourcing of rare minerals like cobalt and a lot of e-waste from, obsolete devices. Fast fashion like H&M and Zara, believe or not, create tons of waste and chemical pollution because the fast fashion is known as throwaway culture. They wear once and then throw away. And that really creates a lot of air pollution. So that's the main environment problem in supply chain. Another social sustainability problems in supply chain, as you see here, there are low wages, excessive working hour issue, especially in developing countries, and unsafe working conditions, and child labor misuse and discrimination, especially in hiring process. And then there are harassment and violence and lack of workers' rights. There's no freedom to unionize. One example is Starbucks. CEO doesn't allow to have a union. I don't know why they changed it these days, but there are a lot of issues in this area. So main issue is how to balance, between cost efficiency with human right and fairness. In order to address human right and fairness, you have to overcome cost efficiency issue. So that's the main problem for the social sustainability in supply chain. So as you see, the Nike has been criticized for sweatshop labor in Asia. And then Foxconn, supplier of Apple, is reported issue like long working hours, worker suicide and poor conditions. So, supply chain company need to address those issues, not only to maximize their profit. So having all those problems in mind, I created the focal company's sustainable supply chain model. This is a focal company. I mainly focused on manufacturing company. That was my main survey correspondent. And then focal company tend to have, their own internal operation, and they have a major supplier network as a major customer network. And they are collaborating and evaluating suppliers and sharing the information. So the focal company has, when they adopt sustainability, they have drivers, they have strategic orientations, they have practices, they have performance. So these are I call the normal logical network. So in terms of practice, I basically consider all three components. One is the internal operation in focal company, and then how do they manage their suppliers, how to manage their customers. So with that, I created look at some literature, how literature shows, based on the triple bottom line dimension and across the supply chain, what are some practices they have been doing. This is mainly from literature research perspective. I didn't, validate from managers, but there are some general idea what kind of sustainable supply chain practices have been implemented in the company level across the supply chain. And then I thought about supplier side and customer side and internal operation side, and in terms of triple bottom line perspective, from economic, from environmental and social dimension. And from that, I developed my research model, normal logical network of sustainable supply chain of focal company. You see that this is a huge model, actually. It took about 3 years to complete. You see that from drivers, I consider two aspects. One is the external pressure or institutional pressure, such as mimetic pressure. Mimetic pressure, mainly competitor pressure. when competing firms adopting certain sustainability program, you have to consider adopting the same program because that pressure comes. Your competing for company are doing, why don't I do? That kind of pressure. Wholesale pressure comes from government regulation type of, compliant type of pressure. Normative pressure are kind of social good. Company has desire to create a social good. They want to be responsible in the society. So those three pressure are important from external perspective. Then internal, how to develop top leadership culture, how manager, develop the attitude and perspective, how we can create the top management support, how we can motivate employees to continue to pursue sustainability initiatives. So that really lead to forming strategic orientation across the triple bottom line. Some of the contract I developed newly, and most of the construct I came from survey that developed already in the research. So you may argue why not some practice are not, you shown why only three practices in supplier management, operation management, and customer management. Because I couldn't find the literature that really, validated from survey item. So these are basically, I can say empirically driven research model. So I had to, develop my construct for each one, supported by literature, and then create the survey items. So it required a lot of time to develop it. So I went through this methodology, that came from, traditional way to, develop survey methodology. I did a comprehensive literature review, pulling all the initial items and collecting all the survey items, and then, conducted a structure interview with the managers and then PhD students to verify their thinking, how my items are, reasonable and validated. And then I conducted a pilot study using like a 30 company data. And finally, after everything was validated, I conducted large scale survey data and proved my hypothesis. It ended with a 212 company data from SME, which is a Society of Manufacturing Engineering, and somehow my response rate was almost 40%. It was very much surprising. At the time, I was a PhD student. I appeared my situation to the managers. They were very mindful. They were very mindful that, I having three children at the time. And then I can explain, I have to get a job. I'm still a student. And the day I appeared there, kind of their emotion. And then I got very high response rate. It was very lucky. But I think these days, survey response rate is very hard. It's almost like less than 2% or 3%. So just let me know if you want to see how I approached that. There are a lot of procedures I went through, increase my response rate. So these are kind of, my preview, my overall result of structural result model. I don't want to spend much time because you may not understand. This is kind of interesting thing I found, however. You see that external pressure doesn't have a direct effect on people's, strategy orientation. Whether through forming top management culture, they can form strategy orientation, then they can implement all the different practices. One thing I found interesting thing was this path. Basically, supplier management practice has no direct effect to sustainability performance. I've heard it for a while, but I realized managing suppliers, developing and evaluating them cannot bring the immediate results. It takes time. You need to have a long-term relationship. In order to bring business performance, you have to work together with the manufacturers. Suppliers cannot, because you are working with a supplier, suppliers need to be aware of developing the long-term relationship with their manufacturing company in order to bring focal companies, performance outcomes. But, when it comes to customer management relationship, practice, I don't see integration here. Why? So I puzzled up one more time. Then I realized managing customers requires a lot of front-end marketing initiative. Those marketing initiative requires top management thinking, not your own, operational level. So you have to work with the top management orientation, top leadership culture, and then forming the strategic orientation from top management level. Then you can implement practices. So then, you can reap the benefit. So managing supplier, managing customers require a different approach. So this shows like an aggregate level of performance. So supplier side, you need to work together with the manufacturers to reap the benefit. And customer side, you need to work together with the top management level to bring the benefit. So that's my kind of research initial idea. And since it was a huge model, I split into different model and I published into 3 different journals so far. So 2019, I published one paper in production and planning control. Another paper was published in Management Decision 2020. Another paper in 2022. So I don't want to spend much time, but let me briefly introduce this paper. This model shows that there are mimetic pressure. I only, select the one external pressure. And the mimetic pressure has a differential effect on quality management and environment management. And then this result show that mimetic quality pressure doesn't have a direct effect on quality management practice, but mimetic environmental pressure has a direct effect on environmental program. And I reason why, because quality management programs such as lean manufacturing has a long history. Whenever company adopt those Six Sigma lean manufacturing in their manufacturing system, their driver is not from competitors. Their driver is inside. But in terms of adopting environmental management system, the drivers are mainly from competitors. But they don't need to invest tons of money to reduce their environmental impact. But when your competitors are doing that, you are motivated. So that's a different, way to adopt different programs. So I realize that's very interesting finding in terms of mimetic pressure, how they affect differently in implementing quality management and environmental management. And it was published in Medical Journal. So let me go to the why I put 2.0 in sustainable supply chain. And do you guess, this is a kind of difference between sustainable supply chain 1.0 versus sustainable supply chain 2.0. I chose dividing year was 2023. Guess what? 2023 was the very pivotal, year because I think the two reasons, AI, emergence of generative AI, changed everything, landscape of, supply chain industry. The other thing was, COVID pandemic. 23 was the year that you finally completely free from, COVID-19, but supply chain companies have realized, oh, we need resilience. Lean is not enough. Many people thought reducing cost, maximizing efficiency was the main goal before pandemic. After they experienced pandemic, a lot of supply chain disruption happened because many companies only focus on efficiency, reducing waste, and also maximizing the efficiency of inventory. They don't think about disruption. They only thought about, okay, cost reduction from outsourcing. But when Chinese, factories are shut down, they couldn't find alternative. So they realized, oh, we need to diversify supplier base. We need to, make our supply chain more resilient, more like adaptive. So they changed the mindset. So 2023 was the pivotal year. The sustainable supply chain has been drastically changed. So I put 2023 was the reasonable year that I can say now we enter into a new era in terms of sustainable supply chain. So I put 2.0. Does it make sense? Yeah. So yeah, before that, they mainly focus on compliance oriented, efficiency focus, linear thinking, take, make, and disposal type of supply chain. Then very much a stakeholder pressure driven model. But nowadays, company has to think how we can use AI, and then supply sustainability is no longer add-on, but should be core driver of everything they do. So in proactive and collaborative, they co-create value with the supplier, customer, even from their competitors, as long as they can achieve the common sustainability goals. So they change their mindset. And then now resilience and adaptability was the main focus rather than efficiency. So here is my kind of research contribution I think I made to this sustainability research field. So one is the foundation, the other is lean and environmental management as enablers. And I also added the social and organizational dimension and design and innovation. Briefly, I published, that with the dissertation 23 and really trying to come up with a research model, the framework for sustainable supply chain from focal company, and all the way from key driver, strategic orientation, and to the performance outcome. I think that became my foundational in my sustainability research. And I also published one journal that talk about strategic partnership with the supplier and customers. And that's very much, produced a good positive outcome. And supply chain integration, how they improve the sustainability outcome. So basically my first contribution, I think firm need a strategic environmental orientation and integration of core supply chain partners to drive positive sustainability performance. The other contribution, I think, lean and green. So lean and environmental management as enablers. Because lean as a foundation now has a synergistic effect when it combined with the environmental practice in terms of driving business performance. So that really gained the international audience. And then, I briefly talked about mimetic pressure one, right? And then the other paper I published on how lean management and risk management and lean manufacturing must be co-configured to address both efficiency and volatility. So this is a kind of after pandemic, companies are they have to not only focus on lean, they have to really embrace risk management so that they're gonna minimize the supply chain disruption. So my second contribution, I think lean drives sustainability when integrated with environmental management and risk strategy. So this is very important finding because many companies are still implementing lean. And when it comes to adopting sustainability, lean can trigger and enables them to bring the better outcome. Third contribution, I think I published on social and organizational dimension. And I published a journal on the topic of social sustainability as a three-pronged approach. And the other is the role of top management support in achieving environmental goals. So third contribution, I think sustainability advances when social practice align with a strong leadership commitment. It requires leadership, top leadership, thinking and their support. Otherwise, it will end up with nothing. Final, design and innovation. So I published one paper on strategic environment orientation influence the environmental design practice. So design is the front end of sustainability. It starts with the strategy. So embedding green thinking early create the lasting impact. So this is kind of my overview of emerging trends. How sustainable supply chain 2.0, what kind of trend and what kind of opportunity for research publication. There are many, but I try to summarize in three ways. One is the rise of digital technology, such as artificial intelligence, IoT, which is Internet of Things, and blockchain, or digital technology has greater impact. And another one is a stronger attention to social dimension of sustainability, such as DEI and human rights and ethical sourcing. Finally, integrating ESG. ESG is a kind of new term, so environmental, social, and governance. Instead of like the triple bottom line. Triple bottom line is embedded. For company now added like ESG perspective and scope 3 emission and then carbon accounting. Let me go one by one. AI changed everything. AI and Industry 4.0. So nowadays, company has to implement supply chain intelligence using AI. So they are using predictive analytics to how to optimize their supply chain. So AI model really try to provide a real-time decision making and then make a supply chain more resilient. Another example I can show is smart factory. So companies are using AI, Internet of Things, robotics, automation in their factory. So let me show you how SAP are using AI in their managing everything. So we call SAP Joule is the kind of AI co-pilot that SAP are using. Whenever, every decision making they are using, they use Joule. So for example, let me give some example here. They ask question like, why is this machine down? What's our carbon footprint this week? This kind of simple question they are asking to Joule. Joule really provide a quick solution. Not only that, they suggest root cause of the problem, they also recommend suggestions on the real-time basis. So managers and operators, they are using Joule to find those answers, and then they are incorporating. So Joule basically, yeah, so that's kind of very amazing. So I went to the smart factory in the SAP Industry 4.0 Center. They demonstrate showcases how factories are using AI, such as the SAP Joule, to manage their factories in the smart way. So, they are using like a assembly line and then embedded with AI solution. They are kind of, working together with AI, and the AI can give you a quick solution, and they are managing all the factories in their way. So this is open to public. So, SAP North America headquarters is on Newtown Square. It's a 15 minutes away from here. So if we want to explore like what is the smart factory looking like, you can go to this SAP center, and then they will show you how to manage that factory. So Industry 4.0, they are using like automation through robotics. It's very cool experience, I realize. So that become a norm in European countries. Many of American manufacturing companies are adopting AI and robotics automation in their systems. One example is Amazon fulfillment center. Everything is automated. So next week, I'm bringing my student to Amazon fulfillment center, how automation is embedded in everywhere. So yeah, that's the kind of exciting topic for sustainable supply chain. And blockchain is another one. Also, robotics process automation, RPA is another one. So nowadays, automating repetitive work and resource-heavy supply chain tasks are done by AI. You don't have to do it. So this is like a social dimension of sustainability. So now DEI, for the diversity, equity, and inclusion, now considered as key performance factors. And ethical sourcing, human rights compliance is another interesting research topic. I can show you scope 3 emission because these days many companies are interested in scope 3 emission. As opposed to scope 1, scope 2 emission, scope 3 emissions are emissions that came from supply chain partners, from upstream supplier, tier 1, tier 2, all the way tier N suppliers, and downstream activities. There are a lot of emission happen while they're, logistic and transportation. So indirect scope 3 emission thing is that very hard to track because they have no quality data and there's so much complexity of network. That's the problem. So, but thing is that companies arguably 60 to 90% of all the emission come from scope 3 emission. So this is the main area that we need to tackle as a researcher, how we can measure and how we can improve those scope 3 emission by collaborating different supply chain partners. That's another research area that give us greater opportunity. So yeah, conclusion, it was so good to reflect on my past 10 to 15 years of my research journey. I was very lucky to study this topic, and then considering all the exciting, opportunities looking forward, in the next another 10 to 15 years before I retire, I'm excited to tackle on the new topic. But I'm going to maintain the supply chain and sustainability. So that's my kind of presentation today. And thank you for listening. And any question? I know, kind of very broad. I want to review everything.
There may be questions on the Zoom too.
Sure.
Perhaps you
Yeah.
could bring back the see.
Hi, do you have any questions?
Cheryl does. Yeah.
Okay. Cheryl, so you can unmute.
Yes, I'm trying to get my computer to respond, and I'll put my hand down. I have so many questions and comments, and I really appreciate this because it seems like any of your numerous papers and models could provide, information for one of these talks, and I really appreciate that. I unfortunately have to go all the way back to the beginning with my first question, and of course, I'll cede the floor to other people who ask questions. But sometimes when I think about lean manufacturing, I don't think about sustainable or environmentally friendly practices because, like with just in time, you're sending smaller, amounts of products, out for distribution, et cetera, which increases the transportation emissions and, externalities like dumping your pollution could make your manufacturing look leaner. But so I guess I just need a basic definition to start of what lean really means.
What you pointed out was true. So lean manufacturing itself, I don't think can produce, sustainability outcome. By definition, lean is using less resources to produce more outcome. So that's the definition of lean I'm thinking. But lean manufacturing itself, you use a lot of frequent, frequent use of, smaller input to working together with supplier, but they are creating a lot of supplier resources. They basically focus on few suppliers, maintain the long-term relationship. In terms of diversifying the supplier base, they try to focus on few very reliable suppliers for long run. And then my reasoning was, because companies are using lean anyway, so many companies are using lean manufacturing, lean production in order to maximize the efficiency and minimize their inventory and just in time. inherently, partially they can beneficial to reduce waste because by nature they use less energy, less resources, less input to produce the reasonably more outcome.
Right.
Yeah, that's my kind of reasoning.
I guess I had to go to your paper to see that exact, like why lean equals green, but thank you for that explanation. So,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you.
Don't have academic background in this, let's go through it up. But I read an article that mentioned like the use of like AI, like one AI search is equal to like 10 times the amount like of energy or whatever it requires to do a Google search. So would then like the benefit of using like AI in these companies like be worse like on emissions locally if it like has so much impact on the environment? Or like, does the benefit of using AI like outweigh the emissions it uses?
I mean, that's a very good question. AI inherently use more data in order to use the big data, use a lot of water, a lot of energy that inevitably produce more pollution. I cannot deny that. That's for sure. But in terms of impact on AI into supply chain, I think that has benefit. So because they give us a quick solution, give us like real-time data, real-time decision making that reduce a lot of unnecessary steps. So in that way, AI can benefit, sustainability one way or another. But we have to deal with that. This is a main issue. Yeah. How to reduce all the energy and waters and resources. Because we need big data. The more and more big data required, people need more information. So that one, I don't know. I don't have solution. But many AI researchers are thinking about that, how to reduce that resource. But I don't think that is possible in a short-term period. Because
I would imagine the environmental impacts of AI would need to be measured in that scope 3 upstream and downstream impacts that you mentioned. Because for an individual firm, accounting for their use of AI would not really account for all the energy requirements of the servers and data farms. That would have to come through assessing those upstream scope 3 emissions. Is that right?
I think so, yeah. Somehow very much relevant, yeah.
I found some of well, I'll echo Nadine's comment in that this is not my field of study, so I very much appreciate your sharing the work you've done. And like Cheryl Wanko, I'd have to read some of these papers in a bit more depth to fully understand them. But I was fascinated with one of your final slides that talked about the impact of your research and some of those key findings that you've come to, because they're findings that echo much of the challenges we face in the Office of Sustainability and the work that is done in the Sustainability Council to think about how we as an institution, rather than a firm, but Westchester University as an institution, can act on the commitments we've made around sustainability and be effective in translating that into our operations and our academics.
Yeah.
And so
but to be honest, like manufacturing industry is one of the largest pollution source. So, do you know that, company are advertising sustainability? They are the one who are polluting much in the air, in the water. So why they're promoting sustainability? Because they're guilty, feeling. There was so much, source of pollution. But thing is that the fact that they address that sustainability is a main strategy has a greater kind of potential for that minimizing what they are doing. So in terms of DuPont, a lot of air pollution, a lot of water pollution because chemical release. But they are advertising we are a sustainability company. Can you imagine? So by developing that sustainable supply chain model, I try to contribute what we researchers are thinking, how we can contribute in one way or another. That's kind of my small way that I can contribute. But definitely we are guilty of many things, and the manufacturing companies are kind of enemy of sustainability. Yeah, so that's my initial feeling, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't give you a chance to ask a question, Walt.
They didn't ask a question, I had most of them.
Okay.
But maybe one more question?
Did you have a follow-up? Maybe?
I'm thinking about it in the sense of like applicability sense, like, to apply your model like for existing companies, would it be, I guess, less incentivized for like existing companies than like emerging companies? It would be like financially like a very large burden on like existing companies would don't have the sustainability practices.
One thing I can think of is, sustainability should start with the top management. Top management leadership has to initiate. But thing is that there is a gap between top management thinking and operational level shop floor managers. But they are the ones who are actually working to make it possible. So they need to a lot of, develop the communication channel to narrow that gap. But top management, basically main idea is we need to maximize the profit. But they have to really change their mindset. But maximizing profit is not the only goal, but they have to, increase the shareholder, benefit, which is that they're addressing all kind of sustainability issues. When top management change their mindset, they can drive all the movement so that they can work together with the shop floor managers so that their supply chain can be sustainable. But that's why I, show the model. Everything comes from top management. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
Managing our time. If you have time for one more question, it looks like Dr. Wenko has
Sure.
another comment.
Well, I had a question about this model and the external pressures. One of the only ways that I interact with manufacturers is by being a customer. So does your model account for external pressures like customer demand for sustainable practices in any way?
That's a very good question. Unfortunately not. I didn't include that. Yeah. But that's a very interesting question. Yeah. Because I didn't think about from customer perspective. I only think about from focal company's perspective.
Right.
Yeah. Because their customers are companies, not individual consumers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I propose a model 3.0 is
Sure.
what happens after tariffs go into effect? That's more a sarcastic comment than a real comment.
I mean, yeah, thank you for your comment. Yeah. I don't know. It's unpredictable. Yeah. Model should provide a generalized, results, but that tariff effect is very unpredictable. So I cannot include it as one of the factors. It can be included as a control variable. Definitely, yeah.
Well, we are almost at 1 p.m., so I think we should thank Dr. Yang one more time. And
Thank you.
encourage all of you online and here in person to join us next